one of the first things that we were faced with was the desegregation ruling, that the schools had to be desegregated, and that was a big issue because the center of the city was basically where the black neighborhoods were, and then the whites were all around the outer edge. And we had a family, and the father was on the faculty at Duke. He was our only white family at the time, other than us. And his specialty was East African. He had spent a lot of time in Tanzania, in that area. So, but they were always concerned that we didn't have a social life other than right where we lived. So we would go to parties at their house and got to know some of the brilliant professors from Duke University. And so at one of the parties, this one man said to my husband, I would like you to, we're having a meeting about the desegregation ruling, and I would like for you to come and represent the black community. And my husband, with this twinkle in his eye, said, I could never represent the black community in a million years, but I'm coming to your meeting. Well, there was we went, and there was a lot of rhetoric going on that was not very pleasant and didn't sound to me like it was coming from sane, educated people. And I looked at my husband, and I could see that the whites of his eyes were all red. And he's going to blow. I mean, it would take a lot to make him blow, but he looked like he was ready. And before I realized what was happening, I was on my feet, and I said, we have to get home to get the babysitter. Let's have the next meeting at our house, and we'll invite your counterparts in our community. So that's what we did. And we had a room that had nothing in it but folding chairs, and there were 50-some chairs in that room, as tightly snugged as could be. And there was an equal proportion of blacks and whites from we had North Carolina Central University right in our backyard, so there were professors from there were attorneys, there were, well, our neighborhood too, and there were just neighborhood people who were not really highly educated. But we had the meeting, and I kept, we had the place where they were meeting was over here, and my kitchen was over here behind the wall. And I kept making coffee and bringing it out to them. And the stuff I heard was, again, the same kind of rhetoric that was painful. And so all of a sudden it's quiet. And I thought, oh, well, I was so worried. I thought, oh, they're going to burn the house down. They're going to kill my kids. All those feelings. And all of a sudden it's quiet. And I looked out there, and here's my husband at a chart, and he's organized that whole group, pulling together things he had learned in Chicago, and pulling out of them the ideas. He said, this is what I heard you say you thought was important. And he'd pull these ideas out. He said, now, the next thing we need to do is address them by groups working on each one of them. I want you to commit yourself to be equal color in every group. And that this was in February, and that by the time September's here, we will have solved a lot of these problems. And that's exactly what happened. Those people in their little committees all over the city were meeting and solving problems that we had, and we were praying. That was our job after that. Well, I thought it was kind of interesting that we had a sliding door that went out to the patio, and on one side stood this short little guy, right 5'5", short, which is short, and he's kind of rough and tumble looking, but he was there, and I just assumed that somebody in our group invited him. There was also on the other side standing a woman who was about 6'2". She was a tall African American woman, and those two just stood there. And every time I look at them, they're just, like this. I never did find out exactly who they were. Well, back to February, then March, April, May, and so on. In September, when school started in Durham. The Durham Herald newspaper said, desegregation comes to Durham without a hitch. But Mecklenburg County, where Charlotte was, is on fire. And it literally was on fire. And I know that because of our prayer and the willingness to allow persecution, even if need be, to take place, I know that God called us there for that purpose.